Welcome to Talking Jazz. My guest today is Owen Broder, and he has a brand new album that focuses on Johnny Hodges. Hodges front and center, and it's volume 2. So we're going to talk a lot about this wonderful new album and Johnny Hodges and Duke Ellington and all that good stuff. But first of all, we need to get to know Owen Broder. So I'm going to ask you to give us a quick synopsis of Owen, if you don't mind.
Sure. Monika, it's so nice to be with you. Looking forward to this conversation. As you mentioned, I'm Owen Broder. I'm a saxophonist. I split my time between New York City and Portland, Oregon. In New York, I do most of my playing, and in Portland, Oregon, I teach at Portland State University and Pacific University, teaching saxophone lessons and jazz-related courses. I've been in Portland for about 2.5 years, and before that, I was in New York full-time for about 10 years and playing with my own projects and participating in bands led by others. Some of the projects that I've been a part of for quite a while are the Anat Cohen Tentet, Ryan Truesdale's Gil Evans project, and kind of an offshoot of that, his tribute to Bertha the Cool, recreating that wonderful music, and then some of my own, including Cowboys and Frenchmen and the American Roots project.
Cool stuff. All right. So we got the synopsis. So we're going to listen to several of the selections from the album. And as I said, this is volume 2. So there's a volume 1 before it.
That's right.
And help me name the musicians so I don't mispronounce that are playing with you on that album.
No worries. Yeah, I was very lucky to be working with some fantastic friends and musicians. Riley Moherkar on the trumpet, Carmen Stoff on piano, Barry Stevenson on bass, and Brian Carter on drums.
Very cool. And the first one we're going to listen to is titled Used to Be Duke. And this is kind of fun because Hodges left Duke Ellington for a minute and then he came back.
Right.
And when he was back, I think he did the tune or the album, if I understand that right.
Yes, I think that's right. A lot of this music that's included on both volumes of this album was recorded in that space between his tenures with Ellington's band. During that time he left the group, he spent a lot of that time recording his own music with these small group projects that Hodges Front and Center highlights.
Very cool. So usually, I'm hoping people can focus in on something to listen to. So what would you recommend when we listen to Used to Be Duke to learn or to focus on when we go into it?
Well, I think this is such a great presentation of a small group arrangement. And so I think, if you're familiar with Hodges as Duke Ellington's lead alto saxophone player, I would use this as an opportunity to listen to him in a smaller group setting, positioning himself more as a soloist in this kind of more intimate setting.
All right, well, let's dive in and get a taste. So here's Used to Be Duke from the brand new album Hodges Front and Center, Volume 2, featuring trumpeter Riley Moherkar, pianist Carmen Stoff, bassist Barry Stevenson, drummer Brian Carter, and of course my guest today, Owen Broder. That was Used to Be Duke, a selection from the new album Hodges, Front and Center, Volume 2, by my guest Owen Broder, who you heard on saxophone, and who is paying tribute to your hero, Johnny Hodges. Otherwise, you wouldn't do it.
He's been a favorite of mine since I was a teenager.
Yeah, I bet. So this next one we're going to listen to is Wabash Blues. And I looked at the recording dates with September 2021. So that was when we were all thinking, what's going on in the world and where are we going to go? So am I right? This whole thing was a pandemic project and this is how you put it together?
Actually, the origins of this project start before the pandemic. I transcribed all of these arrangements and adapted them for a quintet setting in 2019. And I actually did some touring with this music in 2019, going across the United States with different bands from the cities that I visited. So not a regular personnel. And then the pandemic hit, and on the other side of that, coming out of that in 2021, I decided to solidify the group and put this on a recording. And so I chose these wonderful musicians, some of whom I had been friends with for quite a while, but maybe hadn't played much with, and others who I respected and admired as musicians and wanted to work with. And so this was an opportunity for me to kind of work with some new collaborators and work with some people who I had been wanting to play music with for a while.
Great opportunity to do that. All right, so the next one we're going to listen to is Wabash Blues. And having lived in Indiana for 35 years, there's lots of Wabash going on. So I assume there's some Indiana connection, but we don't really know, right?
I couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
Macon would,
many songs
we'd have
about the Wabash written around it.
Yes, exactly.
So obviously Hodges got inspired too to use one of those, the Wabash Blues. And anything we should focus on when we listen to this one?
You know, Johnny Hodges is so well-versed and attached to the blues, both as a song form and as a style of playing, and that, you know, capturing that spirit no matter what the song form is. And so one of the goals of this project was, among the many, many blues forms that Johnny Hodges recorded, I wanted to identify and record and work with some songs that weren't the blues form, but still captured that spirit of the blues. And this is such a great example of that.
All right, let's dive into the blues and enjoy the whole feeling. I usually tell people the blues is not about being sad, but when you're sad, you play the blues and you let it all out and then you feel better.
Exactly.
All right, so here is Wabash Blues, a selection from the album Hodges Front and Center, Volume 2, as recorded by my guest today, Owen Broder. That was Wabash Blues, a selection from a new album entitled Hodges, Front and Center, Volume 2. And my guest today is Owen Broder, who is the saxophonist who put it all together, who wrote the arrangements, big Johnny Hodges fan. And we're going to head for one where you actually play baritone. So with saxophones, we have the different styles and sounds, and usually every tenor sax player is a John Coltrane fan. What attracted you to Johnny Hodges? And tell us a little bit about how you picked the tunes and put this together.
Like most musicians studying jazz in high school, I spent a lot of time with the school jazz band studying Duke Ellington. And if you're studying Duke Ellington, sitting in the lead alto chair, you have to study Johnny Hodges. And I just fell in love with his style and his approach to melodies and his lyrical improvisation and the vocal quality of his approach to melodies. And so in the context of big band, I really fell in love with Johnny Hodges. Later on, I kind of discovered Johnny Hodges in small group settings, introduced to that context through 2 albums he recorded with Duke Ellington, co-leading the band, called Back to Back and Side by Side, both released in 1959. So those 2 records were kind of my entry point into getting to know Johnny Hodges as a small group player and band leader. So that was kind of my interest in Johnny Hodges. And then in selecting these tunes, as I mentioned before, Johnny recorded so many blues forms. I felt it was important to represent a diverse collection of song forms and styles. And so I tried to come up with a nice balance of the blues that Johnny Hodges is so well versed in and so well documented on, as well as other song forms that Johnny Hodges navigates. And so this next track that we're going to be listening to, Backbeat, comes from a project with another one of my saxophone heroes, this one on the baritone, Jerry Mulligan, a collaboration between Jerry Mulligan and Johnny Hodges. And so because Jerry Mulligan is also a hero of mine, I thought it was appropriate for me to be on baritone on this and then put the alto saxophone part that Johnny Hodges originally played, gave that part to the trumpet player, Riley Mulherkar. So this is a tune from that collaboration by Jerry Mulligan and Johnny Hodges. This tune was written by Johnny Hodges. On Volume 1, we did another song from this collaboration called 18 Carats for Rabbit that was written by Jerry Mulligan. One of the differentiating elements between these 2 albums is Volume 2 highlights more of Johnny Hodges as a composer.
Very cool. Thanks for providing us the insights here. All right, let's have a listen. So we're going to hear Backbeat, which is also a selection from the new album Hodges Front and Center, Volume 2. And you'll hear my guest today, Owen Broder, on the baritone saxophone. That was a selection called Backbeat from the new album Hodges Front and Center Volume 2. And we're talking to Owen Broder, who pays homage to Johnny Hodges and is also the leader of the group and transcribed all this. But there's much more to you. I think one big touring project, you didn't mention you were with the Postmodern Jukebox, also on the road, and got several awards for entrepreneurship. So I'm going to change directions here in a minute and ask you, what does it take these days to create a contemporary music career and have this entrepreneurial spirit?
Yeah, I think this is such an important subject for anyone pursuing music as a career. I think increasingly so, musicians are expected to do more and more of the kind of administrative and entrepreneurial side of the music. You have to be well versed in how to navigate the industry, which is continuing to evolve. especially where in a world where streaming is predominantly how people consume music and record sales is not really a viable source of income for musicians. You have to find other ways to kind of craft your career and make that your living. And there are lots of creative ways to move yourself forward, participating in different musically related activities through band leading, concert presenting, grant writing, recognizing your own skill sets that are unique to you and make you feel comfortable in your own wheelhouse and bringing that to what you do as a musician. And I think, such an important part of all of that is authenticity. You just have to figure out what feels like you and recognize that only you can do what you do. And if you can really harness that and harness what you feel like you are bringing to the table, people will value that. There's always value in skills that you have that you can contribute to various situations. And I think that's the way that you kind of craft your path.
Just the passion you talk about this tells me you're really invested in this whole entrepreneurship idea. But you're right. It's super important. And one thing many don't realize is, especially the grant writing part, that there are resources and ways to get support, but you'll have to get active and you'll have to ask for it. Nobody's going to come after you.
Yeah, definitely. This is a subject I love talking about, especially as an educator. I feel it's very important for me in that role to prepare my students for life after school. They need to kind of know what to expect and know how to navigate the industry that they're launching themselves into. And so it's important to think about, it's important to strategize and plan ahead for that.
Absolutely. Yeah, we can't just kick them out on the street and say, hey, figure something out. And we're going to listen to St. Louis Blues. And I think W.C. Handy was kind of an early entrepreneur too. He was one of the first one who actually wrote down those blues and got them published. And that was completely novel. And yeah, he was definitely in that spirit.
Absolutely. Wow. Great segue. Totally.
That just dawned on me. I actually got to play the W.C. Handy Festival once in Alabama. They're very proud of it.
Very cool.
So, St. Louis Blues, give us some keys to listen to and focus on.
Well, kind of going back to this point of song form variety, this song has some interesting traits to it. We start out with this groove called a rumba that, feels different than swing, and we eventually get to that swing feel that's kind of so idiomatic to jazz, but we get that nice textural variety and variety in grooves and feel. And a portion of this song is the blues form, and that's an important part of the improvised section. But you'll hear two parts of the melody, and one does follow the blues form, and then it goes into this minor section, contrasting this kind of uplifting, happy feeling in the major but blues-oriented first half of the song, and then in the second half of the melody, we go into this darker minor portion of the melody that does not follow the blues form. And so even within this song, we get some song form variety, some different colors, some different textures. So I think this is a really beautiful example of a composition that takes us on a journey.
It was crafty songwriting for sure, yeah. All right, so we're going to hear W.C. Handy's St. Louis Blues, a selection from the new album Hodges Front and Center Volume 2. And this is by my guest today, Owen Broder, who you'll also hear on saxophone. That was a selection called St. Louis Blues from the new album Hodges Front and Center Volume 2. And my guest, Owen Broder, who you heard on saxophone, is the one who put the album together, put the arrangements together. And Johnny Hodges, of course, is known as being Duke Ellington's lead alto. We talked a little bit about entrepreneurship, and I would say here's another person that is a great example of putting all these sides together. This year we're celebrating the 125th anniversary year. I don't know, what do you think should be most celebrated? What's the biggest thing about Duke Ellington?
His contributions to jazz composition are invaluable. He really brought a new side of orchestration and colors to this world of jazz composition. Introduced the jazz ensemble as an orchestral setting in an era where big bands were really oriented towards dancing. And now Duke Ellington was instrumental in kind of bringing jazz into a concert setting and bringing it onto the level of symphony orchestras. I think that's such an important contribution from Duke Ellington, and his contributions as an educator. He cared so much about the next generation, and I think that's something that we need to continue to prioritize, preparing the next generation to carry the torch and continue this important music.
Well, and also his leadership skills, knowing each and every band member and knowing exactly how to write the score so you can bring out the best in them. Very few band leaders were able to do that. You write charts and you hope the musicians will make it and do something.
That's so true.
But he knew, I'm going to write this part for Johnny Hodges because I know his strength and the way he can shine.
Yeah, that's so true, and evidenced in details like instead of on the sheet music, instead of saying alto 1, it would say Johnny Hodges, really personalizing each part. So yeah, that's such an important point.
All right, we're going to celebrate Duke Ellington, and we're going to listen to a Duke Ellington composition, Stompy Jones. And this is also from the album Hodges Front and Center Volume 2. My guest today, Owen Broder, is the mastermind behind the album and also the saxophone player. was a song called Stompy Jones, a Duke Ellington composition, actually. And this is from the album Hodges Front and Center Volume 2 with my guest today, Owen Broder. We got time for one more. We're going to take it out on a beautiful, heart-throbbing ballad called Star-Crossed Lovers. But tell us a little bit about what's next. Is this album coming out? What are you up to? What's going on?
Well, this album will be released on April 19th, and over the last few months and continuing until the album release date, we are releasing additional singles that aren't actually on either of the albums. But in September 2021, we recorded over the course of 2 days, I believe it was 23 or 24 tracks.
Wow.
That became, these two albums, and 4 of the tracks, just by nature of, I wanted to release these on LP. And so by nature of the length limitations of LPs, not all of them fit on these albums. And these 4 tracks are so special, and I wanted to put them out into the world. And so we're teasing along this release on April 19th with some additional songs. The Star-Crossed Lovers will be the final of these singles in advance of the album. And it's a very special song in the context of this project, and special to me. It's so closely associated with Johnny Hodges. And I think if you think of the song, you think of Johnny Hodges. And if you think of Johnny Hodges, you think of this song. It's unlike all of the other tracks on both of these albums. It, rather than coming from a small group project led by Johnny Hodges, this is borrowed from Duke Ellington's orchestra's repertoire and something that featured Johnny Hodges with that band. But because it's such an important piece of the Johnny Hodges canon, I felt it was a great addition to this collection of songs on Hodges Front and Center.
Very cool. So if somebody gets inspired and they actually do this rare thing of wanting to buy an album, where can you find it? Or give us a website with connection to you.
Visit owenbroder.com. You can purchase the album there and also revisit Johnny Hodges Front and Center Volume 1. You can explore all the other music that I've released over the years. And yeah.
owenbroder.com. Owen, BRODER.com, and find out more. I assume there will be some concerting and touring going along with it too.
Next month, we'll be doing a run on the West Coast, visiting places like Coombe Jazz Center in Santa Cruz, the Royal Room in Seattle, and Jack London Review here in Portland. We're looking forward to playing this music once again in a live setting. Always so fun to record this music, and also just a special experience to just get to play with these musicians again, recreating this music.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to sharing about the project, and good luck with everything. Hope it'll be a wonderful experience being on the road and playing the music.
Thank you, Monika. Such a treat to speak with you today. Thank you for having me on your show.
Absolutely. So we'll close out with Star-Crossed Lovers, Johnny Hodges' trademark song. And this is from the new recording, Hodges Front and Center Volume 2. And my guest, Owen Broder, put this together. You can find more info at owenbroder.com. And just enjoy, lean back, and close your eyes.
You can hear Talking Jazz every Thursday at 11 a.m. and Mondays at 7 p.m. on WETF 105.7 in South Bend, Indiana, or online at jazzradiowetf.org, and Fridays at 8 p.m. on WICR 88.7 Indianapolis. Previous shows are also on my YouTube channel, Monika Herzig, MonikaHerzig. Please subscribe to the Talking Jazz playlist. Thank you for listening.